extraterrestrials, strange phenomena, missing persons, lost continents, myths, and monsters. We examine these mysteries to determine, are they bullshit or not?
You're listening to TV Ate My Dinner. This is episode 5 for Saturday, August 25th, 2007. My name is Sean, and I'm sitting here with Greg and Brooks.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. And tonight we will be discussing some interesting potential conspiracies behind movies. They're a little half-baked, I won't lie to you, but I think they're interesting.
I think they're all completely true. In fact, I don't even call them conspiracies. We're going to call this episode The Politics of Sci-Fi.
So we're finally getting the truth out.
Exactly. We're cracking this nut. I'm sick of all this pussyfooting around.
The truth is out there. We're going to blow your minds,
And
folks.
tonight, the truth is going to be right in here. That's right. We're going to blow the doors off of it. You hear me? Sci-fi fandom.
So before we get into all that, because it's going to be some heavy stuff, very intellectually heavy stuff. Yeah, people might want to put their thinking caps on, take some notes. So let's give people a minute to get their notebooks and pens out, their graph paper. And
we'll start with some lighter talk.
Yeah, some news, because I hear there's something you were mentioning about Kevin Smith doing a TV show. What is this?
Well, there's a show on the CW that's coming out called Reaper, and what I'm hearing is that Kevin Smith directed the pilot. So
is he going to be directing the show, or is he just a special?
From what I'm hearing, I don't think so. And he didn't write the pilot or anything. He just directed it, which is strange to me because I always thought...
That's kind of weird, yeah.
Yeah, as a fan of Kevin Smith movies, I always thought the other way around would probably be more appropriate. Like, you should probably have him write it and have someone else direct it.
But that doesn't seem to work. A script. I think when
did they ever try that?
Well, when he's written scripts for movies and things, it seems like they always get dumped. Because
the scripts are probably bad. Like, I'm not saying the man can write the Bionic Man or Superman. Everyone thought because he was a comic book fan that you could get him to write these huge movies. Maybe he shouldn't be writing like a $300 million event film. But I mean, as far as his smaller movies, he really has something there. He can write really good dialogue. He writes good characters. I just, it wouldn't hurt to have somebody else at the helm in making the film, I think.
So what is The Reaper? What is that? It sounds like it might be like a sci-fi horror kind of thing.
It is. It's a horror comedy kind of thing.
Horror comedy.
Yeah, and it kind of bothers me because the concept is that there's this kid and his parents sold his soul to the devil, apparently, when he was a child. And so the devil comes collecting when he's 21. And what the devil wants is for him to go collect all of these spirits who have escaped from hell.
And how is this a comedy? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I mean, hilarity ensues. I mean, how's that a comedy?
So it's going to have
I guess how it's a comedy is you've got Brett Harrison is the kid, and he was in that Fox show The Loop. He also was very briefly on that 70s show. He was on Grounded for Life. He's just sort of, he plays every gooby guy in sitcoms anyway. And then the devil is played by Ray Wise, who I like a lot. Used to be on Twin Peaks. Was also on RoboCop. I always try to track the RoboCop cast members because you never know what they're up to.
Which one? Who was Ray Wise? Which one was he?
Which one was he in RoboCop?
Yeah.
He was one of the guys who killed RoboCop. I don't know. Like, what was the guy? He was one of the gang of baddies. And in Twin Peaks, he was the dad. He was of the girl who got killed.
So this show sounds a little bit like My Name is Earl, but instead of like going episode to episode to help people, he's going to collect a soul.
It's also, extremely, and maybe this is how they're getting away with it, but what bothers me is it's very reminiscent of a show that was out in like 98 called Brimstone. And that show had Peter Horton, who had been on 30-something and that volleyball movie with C. Thomas Howell. Am I the only one who understands my filmography? I keep up with things.
I've never heard of any of that. I'm sorry, man.
None of these references matter to anyone but me. But anyway, well, the important thing is that Peter Horton was in Brimstone, which I thought was a really good movie, and that it was a really good show, and it revolved around him. He was a cop who had, and it was very serious. He had murdered a man because the man raped his wife, and then the devil released him from hell if he would go like hunt down these evil souls and bring them back to hell. That was the story, and in that, John Glover was the devil, and I liked him a lot. John Glover plays Lex Luthor's dad in Smallville. He's also done he's done a bunch of stuff. He was the voice of the Riddler in the Batman cartoon. He was in Gremlins too.
Well, there you go.
How far back do I have to go? How much of myself do I have to reveal?
I think this is
to
sufficient.
explain who John Glover is to you. But either way, that show was very good. And not only did it not last very long, but Fox has yet to make a DVD set out of it, which is making me crazy. I would buy Brimstone on DVD, but still it has not happened yet. And this show seems to have the same plot, except it's sort of a 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo thing where it's supposed to be silly.
Jack the Ripper. Was he a prosperous London surgeon? Perhaps a member of British royalty? Well, our bullshit team has unearthed spectacular new evidence which suggests that Jack the Ripper was, in fact, the Loch Ness Monster.
Oh, well, before we move on, we have a new segment that I hope we will incorporate from now on. But TV Ate My Dinner will try to introduce you to some films you probably have not heard of, which apparently for me is not a big deal because everything I say no one knows what I'm talking about. But we'll try to introduce you to some movies that may have slipped through the cracks that you might like to see. And we call this segment Movies from the Vault. And the very first movie from the vault that I've picked out is Remo Williams, which you may remember
good choice.
Also called The Adventure Begins, but I try to leave that out because that's not how it played out.
Because the adventure began and ended right there.
The adventure encapsulated in a single film. That was all. But this is an 80s action movie, and it attempted unsuccessfully to turn the Destroyer series of pulp novels into a film franchise. It's funny and cool, and it's got my man Fred Ward in it. He's a cop turned kung fu superhero, and he co-stars with Broadway star Joel Grey as his Asian mystic master Chun. This is one you just have to see, and if you have TNT or cable, I mean, you've seen it at least some point. This was a good movie. I feel bad because I love Fred Ward and I like the Destroyer novels, and I thought this was a good attempt to really make a movie out of it, but no go.
Also, if you're a Star Trek fan, his girlfriend is
Janeway.
Janeway,
that's right.
Yeah. From
his
for some reason her name escapes me right now.
Kate
but anyway,
Mulgrew.
Kate Mulgrew, thank you. And but yeah, anyway, if you're that hardcore of a Star Trek fan, watch Remo Williams just to see Kate Mulgrew before she became Captain.
Hit it big. But yeah, Remo Williams is a cool flick. So if you got a chance, it is on DVD, Netflix it, or go ahead and buy it. You can probably buy it for like $7. But that's that. And I guess we should move on to our topic. I think Brooks had a lot of strong feelings about the politics of sci-fi in certain shows.
And not just sci-fi, just television in general. And the one thing that
pop culture
I wanted to talk about in terms of this was the Smurfs. And if you're not old enough, you might not remember the Smurfs. The Smurfs was a cartoon that was out in the 80s. It was, I guess, more of a girl cartoon than a guy cartoon. Guys weren't really into it. But
I liked the Smurfs. What are you talking about? I collected Smurfs.
Really?
Well, I lived in Germany. It was a lot easier to collect Smurfs when you live in Germany. But still, it wasn't a girl cartoon.
I think we're learning a lot about Sean here. Well, but yeah, the Smurfs were these little blue creatures. They were 3 apples high. They lived in a little mushroom village, and they just had a little society, and they were being chased by this wizard guy named Gargamel, and he was the bad guy. So if you haven't seen the cartoon, just bear with us, and hopefully it'll be interesting. If you have seen the cartoon, you should know exactly what I'm talking about.
Available now on DVD.
Well, as everything is.
Is it really?
Well, just in case you haven't seen it.
Well, you can get Dungeons and Dragons on DVD. I guess you can get Smurfs.
Well, for many, many years, since I was a kid, really, I've had this theory that there are some compelling similarities between the Smurfs and communism. For the longest time, I thought I was the only one that thought this until...
Since you were a kid, you've been thinking this.
Yeah, well, it was the Reagan era. It was the 80s. It wasn't unheard of to be thinking about. The communism was everywhere.
To be seeing the pinko and everything.
Seeing the red menace and little blue Smurfs.
Well, I thought I was the only one for a long time until the internet came around, and then I saw that there are plenty of other people that think this. In fact, there's an article in Wikipedia about just this. I'll post a link to it on the TV Ate My Dinner page so people can check it out. It goes into this with a lot more detail than I will tonight. But for now, I'm going to give you some evidence to consider, and I'll let you guys draw your own conclusions, okay?
Okay, hit it.
Okay.
All right. A little enthusiasm would be nice.
I didn't know we were supposed to answer. I thought you were talking to them.
Okay. Is this going to take, like 20 minutes? Because I'm just going to run outside for a minute and come back.
I've got a thing. Can I smoke a cigarette while you're talking about this?
I have
stuff?
a gala.
I have a gala.
Firstly, we'll start off by discussing appearance, because this is the most obvious thing probably. Papa Smurf, who is the leader of the Smurfs, has a bushy white beard, which resembles Karl Marx's. He also wears red, which was the stereotypical color of communism. Despite the society's communal nature, Papa Smurf does have the ultimate authority. In several episodes, when Papa Smurf is not present, the Smurf village's utopian system destabilizes entirely. The very fact that his name is Papa Smurf recalls the paternal nature adopted by the leaders of the Soviet Union throughout the Cold War. Brainy Smurf, which was, I guess, sort of his second in charge, he has round spectacles, much like Leon Trotsky. And their position in society can be seen as similar. Trotsky felt his intellectual theories of communist society were superior, much like Brainy feels about Papa Smurf, and Brainy attempts to seize power in several episodes when Papa Smurf is away. In the cartoon, Brainy was alone in his willingness to question the ideals of Smurfism.
This is from the Wikipedia articles. That's correct.
Well, this is an amalgam of my theories and backed up with things from the Wikipedia article, yes. All of the other Smurfs wear the same white clothes, which is representative of the largely uniform style of attire dominant in several early periods of the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China, including the Mao suit. The Smurfs live in what the Wikipedia article calls an egalitarian utopia. There is no system of monetary exchange or even barter in the Smurf village. In addition to this, Smurf identity is related to their function in society. Their individual names also happen to be their jobs, like Carpenter Smurf, Farmer Smurf, and so on, which parallels the importance placed upon social function versus individuality in Soviet communism. Also, they have Smurf as a suffix to their own name. This can be seen as analogous to the use of comrade. With me so far?
I think maybe you lost me at that exact point.
Really?
How is making the name of your race a verb similar to being saying comrade?
This isn't the verb. This isn't talking about that use of it. It's just how that's the end of every name.
I think that's more like the Hawaiians, how they just use aloha for everything. Like, it just means whatever.
No. You see, that's a different thing. For the kids that don't know, the Smurfs also in the cartoon, and this is something that I found irritating even as a kid, they use Smurf as a verb for pretty much everything. Like, how Smurfy? Let's go Smurf today. You're Smurfing crazy. Everything was Smurf this and Smurf that. I'm not talking about that, though. I'm talking about their names.
Well, how else are you going to swear on Saturday morning cartoon?
I guess. You're a Smurfing mother Smurfer.
But it's like Milkman Smurf. All their names are whatever their job is, and then Smurf. Much like Comrade Milkman, Comrade Carpenter, something like that. You see what I mean?
I get that.
All right.
Okay.
So are you with me, Greg?
Yes, I'm with you. I think it's much crap, but go ahead.
Are you with me, Comrade Greg?
We're almost done. Now consider the evil wizard Gargamel and his cat Azrael, which are both biblical references, as they represent the forces of capitalism. Gargamel desires to capture the Smurfs in order to turn them into gold, as the capitalistic forces want to devour socialism, as the West wanted to do with the USSR, according to Cold War propaganda. Gargamel
we
can be
did.
seen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Suck
go
that,
USA,
Smurfs.
USA,
Yeah.
USA.
We're the
Gargamel
ones
can
that
be
turned them
seen.
blue.
Gargamel can be seen as a pure capitalist from a socialist perspective because he wishes to turn everything into a commodity, including the Smurfs, which are living creatures.
I thought he wanted
I
to
guess-
eat them. He didn't want to eat the Smurfs? I thought he was always trying to put them in a big pot.
I think, from what I understood, he wanted to boil them and turn them into gold.
Oh, so putting them in the pot made them
then
gold.
again, we know now that you are the Smurf fan of the group. You're the one that collected Smurfs, so you may be more knowledgeable than I am about this.
I didn't really drill myself on the mythology of them though. I just like the one who was in a race car and one of them was a fireman. I didn't realize they had such a complicated backstory.
Well, if you really want to get into it, and this is Wikipedia stuff, this is a little bit beyond what I would say, but in Wikipedia they say you can look at the origins of Smurfette, who was created by Gargamel as an evil creature to trick the Smurfs, but is changed magically by Papa Smurf into a good Smurf, and when this happens, her hair changes from black to the Aryan preferred blonde.
Well, maybe just because blonde's a little hotter. I mean, Papa Smurf may be old, but he's not dead. I mean, if you could magically change chicks around, you might make a lot of them blonde.
There's literally no other female Smurfs, so at that point, I'd think they'd be happy with any hair color.
Well, that's true too. If I were the other Smurfs, I'd be like, Papa, could like crank out a few more females before things get rough up in this piece?
Why don't we get a brunette and a blonde?
Yeah. How about some
I
redheads?
kind of prefer brunettes myself.
Then society would indeed crumble.
Exactly.
And this isn't even taking into account the fact that the Smurfs live in mushrooms, which I'm sure you can find all kinds of hallucinogenic drug references in the show if you're looking for them.
They're also not
So-
3 apples high. I don't know where people get off saying that. They're not remotely 3
Well,
apples.
the cartoon says that.
Yeah, if you live in a mushroom, you're not 3 apples high. What kind of mushrooms are they? In fact, this whole show doesn't make sense. I reject this whole show as commentary
No.
on the political struggle of East versus West or whatever.
I realize that a lot of this stuff's really stretching it, but you have to admit there's some weirdness there. There is something to be said about the fact that Papa Smurf wears red. He's the leader. Everyone else wears white. They live in a commune. I mean, there is something to it, I think.
I like the idea that they're all identified by their function. That seems very communist to me. Like, if we all... But to be honest, like, in today's society, if you just identified people by their function, like, you wouldn't be getting much for your money. You'd be like, hey, guy that kind of works at a video store sometimes, Smurf.
Yeah, hey, McDonald's
Yeah.
hamburger serving Smurf.
Hey,
No, I'm the other McDonald's hamburger server. There's actually
Yeah,
50,000 of us.
hey, Smurf, who doesn't have to work because his parents have money. How's it going?
That's Smurfette. She never had a job. I guess she didn't need to, or maybe she did have a job, but we didn't see
Well,
that
the
because
real
it's
life
after hours.
Smurfettes hold out for that guy who has the money. They don't. Smurfette doesn't need a job. She's like, her function speaks for itself. It's like, we're a commune full of only guys, all right? Nobody has to ask what's the chick for.
Yeah, well, but then again, in the defense of it's not a communist thing. They also have people who have named after their function, but they serve no real function, like Lazy Smurf. There's a Lazy Smurf.
Well, there's also
What does
a
he do?
vanity Smurf. Like, what does he do?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, wasn't she the? No wait, that
No,
was
vanity
no, that
Smurf's
was-
a man.
Yeah, that's a guy with a mirror. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
He's in no danger of hooking up with Smurfette, but
Yeah.
he's a man.
Is it possible that Nessie murdered 5 streetwalkers before returning to Loch Ness? Using undiscovered evidence, we've pieced together the events leading up to the first murder.
Hello, dearie. Show you a good time for a quid. For the wife and for free. Oh, gents, don't you want a girl to keep you warm tonight? Oh, my. You are a big one now, aren't you? Come on, darling. Oh, aren't you in a hurry? Now, will you be careful? Not so rough. Wait a minute.
So anyway, I think Sean has another communist/socialist theory that he wanted to get into
Well, I think
that isn't Smurfs, but something else.
it's not as deeply involved as the Smurf thing, but I do think there are a lot of There are a lot of socialist undercurrents in Star Trek. Not the original Star Trek where they were really on top of things, but I mean later on in the Next Generation it got a little mamby-pamby. And specifically, I think somewhere along the line in Star Trek they started deciding that there was no money. Like early in the days they never said there was or wasn't money. They never said what their system was. They were working towards an ideal, but sometime around the Next Generation they started saying there's no money, and we all just work because we want to work. And it's very Smurfy in that way. It's like, we want to better ourselves, and we all just work on a spaceship because we want to explore, and we don't get paid, and it's cool. And they never really explain how that works in a society. Well,
they give each other gifts and things, right?
But what I mean is, are you telling me that Starfleet just builds a spaceship and puts a bunch of guys on it, shoots it off into space, and that's it? No paychecks, no nothing? Just a replicator that makes all their meals for no reason all the time, and there's no reward except the promotion system? No, I think this is, and this is good evidence here. On the Next Generation, they have this holodeck, and the holodeck is a place where you go and it creates these holograms of different places, different things, and you can do basically role-playing on this plane that it creates, where it creates characters that you can interact with, and women, and costumes, and whatever. Anywhere you want to go, anything you want to do happens on the holodeck. And basically, once a season on the Next Generation, the holodeck would malfunction and kill like 8 guys. Like, it just happened. Something would go horribly wrong in the holodeck. It would threaten the whole ship. Somebody would die. They would, in every episode, they'd be like, this isn't supposed to happen, because it's like a game. It's supposed to be something simple. Like, if you were playing PlayStation and all of a sudden PlayStation shot a bullet out at you and you died, that would be the equivalent of what's happening every year on the holodeck on the Enterprise. And no one ever shuts it down. No one ever does any maintenance. No one ever comes around to look at what's going on.
You would think like the Star Trek equivalent of Dateline NBC.
Or you would think there'd be some kind of tribunal or something. Like, where's the oversight committee? They never have those on Star Trek. Like, where's the people that come in?
Holodeck manufacturers are paying off some senators somewhere.
Yeah, well, like, you never have a guy who's like, whoa, before this holodeck comes back online, we're going to find out why it shot that guy. We're going to find out how it created a guy that took over the whole ship. Because in the worst holodeck episode ever, there's like a thing where they're playing Sherlock Holmes, and Geordi says to the computer, why don't you make an opponent capable of defeating Data? And so what does it do? It actually creates someone who has the power to take over the ship's functions and control the computer and all this stuff. He's like, oh, I shouldn't have phrased it that way. It's making someone who can stop Data. It's like, it's not a magical genie machine, just because you told the computer to make someone that can stop Data, that doesn't mean it can magically create that. Like, there's no safeguards.
I mean, if that were true, every situation they run into, they're run into that Q guy or whatever who gives them problems. Like, they can just go run into a holodeck room, create someone that can defeat Q.
That can destroy universe. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Like, I go into my computer, I try to delete an email. The email comes back and says, are you sure you want to delete that email? But Geordi's tells the computer to create a simulation that can destroy the entire spaceship, and the computer's totally on board. Doesn't even question.
Are you sure you want to create a maniacal homicidal fiend?
Never even once. I can't even post a blog without 9. Sorry, we encountered an unexpected error on MySpace. But Geordi can just be like, create a supervillain out of thin air. I'm like, okay, no problem. But by contrast, what I should mention here is, in the magical socialist society of Star Trek The Next Generation, the holodeck is completely free, completely supplied by the government, and thank you very much, government. Now, when we move forward to Deep Space Nine, they're on the space station, and the Ferengi are controlling the holodecks, and they have their holo suites, and everything revolves around paying them money. All of a sudden, there's never an episode of Deep Space Nine where the holo suites break down and nearly destroy the station, ever. But it happens all the time on The Next Generation. And the only difference is you have to pay to use the holo suite. They understand its importance, and therefore, it's sort of like I go on Juno and I'm trying to read my email and I click on something and all of a sudden it directs me to some page that says, oh, you might have viruses, you need to download this thing, and I got to close out everything and relaunch it. Why? Because Juno's free. They don't care. And that's the way it works in Star Trek too. It's like the second that you start paying for something, all of a sudden that crap's gone. And that's what happens with the holodecks.
I'm confused, though. How are they paying for this if they don't have money?
Well, that's where it gets kind of shoddy.
Well, there is a system of money in the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, other people have money, just not Starfleet. They got to wrangle some cash if they want to play with the Ferengi. But the point is that the federally funded holodecks that were completely free kill a guy. Like every 10th guy, dead. That's the holodecks. But the holosuites have a guarantee of quality because you pay money.
Because it's market controlled. They'll go down to the holosuites
if the
down the street.
holosuite broke down, like the whole Ferengi alliance would come down to see what's going on with it. Their whole like Army Corps of Engineers would be down there to fix it the next day because they might lose some money.
So you're saying this is a pro-capitalist argument on the part of Star Trek?
Well, yeah, exactly. I think that they're showing a socialist society that doesn't essentially work because it's not until you introduce capitalism that you have quality control.
Interesting. Are there a lot of transporter accidents too?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Oh, gosh.
Not only do people dissolve sometimes on the transporters, but they had a whole episode where a guy gets caught in the middle of, like, quote-unquote transporter space or something that doesn't even make sense. Like, it's always going wrong. And the one time they cloned Riker, and then they just had a second Riker walking around.
In the original series, they split Captain Kirk in two.
Oh, yeah. That was really bad. They split him up, and there was a good Kirk and a bad Kirk.
I like how it actually splits up.
And then they had an evil
lines.
space poodle. They made an evil space poodle. It was awful.
I forgot about the space poodle. But then in the movie, they turned two people into, like, quivering piles of goo.
I know. Because nobody paid good money for that transporter. That's all I'm saying.
Government funded, good enough for government work transporter.
Exactly. But no, it's all free. Jump on board. Come to Crazy Town where everything costs nothing. And that's where everything started to go horribly awry. But that's just the way of it.
This is libertarian. That's where you're coming down on this.
Is it coming into a libertarian thing? Well, I think it definitely has to be, like, I think it's a pro-capitalism thing. I think definitely Star Trek shows us why. Because I think
pro-market.
I think we start to see this in the real world a little bit. I mean, like I said, like Juno and MySpace, there's a lot of stuff that you can do for free, but then it doesn't work. And you're mad because you can't complain to anybody because you didn't pay money for it. And I think that's like the ultimate expression of that. It's like one day everything will be free. And that's what'll happen. One day you'll just get on the transport pad and it'll melt you. And there won't be anybody to complain to because like we've been letting you transport for free
because
forever.
You'll be melted.
Well, I mean your family. Like, look, man, of course we're going to break a few eggs here and there. We're making this omelet. It's free transport. What are you going to do?
It's still the safest method of travel.
Yeah, that's exactly what they say.
So is Star Trek communist or is it not?
I think Star Trek The Next Generation is socialist. I don't think the original Star Trek was communist at all. But the point is, I think Star Trek The Next Generation, I think, was trying to promote a socialist agenda. And I think it actually made an argument against it. I think it became a treatise against socialism because they were like, here's what would happen. I was like, okay, so
and that must have been intentional on their part.
I
mean, they didn't accidentally write that things would break down. So you wonder if subconsciously they didn't want you to think.
I think it was subconscious because I think they wrote those things because they just weren't good writers and they ran out of ideas. But I think it started to represent the opposite opinion.
Okay, well, there's another Star Trek conspiracy theory that I think Brooks has. Since we're going on and on about Star Trek tonight again.
Since we're on Star Trek, let's try to get back on topic.
Yeah. Well, this is something that I found when Sean told me about his theory. I was going to research it a little bit, see if I can find something. And I didn't find anything about that, but I did find something that I thought was weird and kind of interesting about the 47 conspiracy. Have you heard of this?
No.
No.
Okay. Well, anyway, from Wikipedia, I was able to gather the following. There exists a 47 Society, an outgrowth of a movement started at Pomona College in California, which propagates the belief that the number 47 occurs in nature with noticeably higher frequency than other natural numbers.
In nature or in Star Trek?
The Society says in nature.
Now, is this scientifically proven, or is this just something like a bunch of guys came up with?
This is something that... What now?
Well, you know how like when we were in college, we had secret societies, and we came up with
I don't think
different
this is
funny little
scientifically
bylaws and
proven.
things.
I think this is just something they came up with kind of tongue in cheek, and then they formed a society over it at this college. Now, this guy named Joe Minoski graduated from Pomona College, and he went on to become one of the story writers of Star Trek The Next Generation. This is where he gets introduced to Star Trek. And he, and this is in quotes, infected the other Star Trek writers with it. And as a result, the number 47, or its reverse, 74, occurs in some way or another in almost every single episode of the program and its spin-offs, which are, of course, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise. There's a website called Star Trek The 47 Conspiracy, and I'll put a link to that on our site, tv8mydinner.com, so you can check it out. The site has tons and tons of specific examples of this, but I've pulled a few of the more interesting or insidious ones that I will give to you now, so see what you think of these. From The Next Generation, from Season 1, Episode 25, an episode which is ironically entitled Conspiracy. It is stated that Starfleet Code 47 means Captain's Eyes Only.
That's the one where those little things infected them through their necks.
So you know the episode.
I'm familiar with it. I've seen it 47 times.
Creepy.
Just as a side note, those little infected things were early versions of the Borg. They reimagined them after that episode.
Well, early versions of the Dominion also.
But I mean, they
Sorry, everybody.
Said in the commentaries and things that was going to be their Borg type creature, but then they decided to rework them. But go ahead.
I apologize to
All right.
the audience.
Well, from episode 143 from Season 6, Data is unconscious for 47 seconds. From episode 152 of Season 6, Stephen Hawking wins a round of poker with 4 sevens. Bum, bum, bum. I like that one.
Awesome. 47 people have been killed in the holodeck throughout the course of the show.
From episode 155, Season 7, I think this one's funny, Data notes that the poem he is reading includes a 47-minute period of silence. I think we should recite that poem on the show.
Yeah, so we'll just do a whole episode.
From episode 79, Season 4, now this is a sneaky one, try to follow. At one point, the computer warns that there are 4 minutes and 17 seconds remaining until life support will be lost. The next time the computer reports, it says that there are 3 minutes and 30 seconds remaining. This suggests that 47 seconds elapsed between the reports. Coincidence? Bum bum bum. Here are some from Voyager. From Episode 1, Season 1, and Greg probably knows this, the USS Voyager's registry number is NCC
7447, right?
No. 74656. But also note that the last 3 digits, 656 times the speed of light is warp 7, which in effect makes the number 747.
I think you're reaching there. That's all.
Hey, I
This
didn't
is
make
the
this
little
up.
number 23 to me.
I didn't make this up. From episode 20.
The number 47.
From episode 20, season 2, and this is another example of a sneaky one. Kim's apartment is 4G, G being the 7th letter of the alphabet. In a similar vein from episode 34, season 2, the doctor instructs Kes. Is that how you say it? Kes?
Yeah, that's right.
Kes. How else would you say Kes?
Well, I don't know. It's Star Trek talk.
Isn't it Kes?
Yes. Anyway, the doctor instructs...
I don't know Star Trek, but isn't that...
Well, I've never even seen Voyager. I just don't want to sound like the doofus that doesn't know how to pronounce the Star Trek names. The Star Trek instructs Kes to set the delta band of the holo emitter to 7 megahertz. Delta is, of course, the 4th letter of the Greek alphabet.
Yes.
Dun dun dun.
How come none of these references happen in episode 47?
I'm sure there was one, but it's probably... Most of the things on the site are like, there's the number 47 is written on a panel as they walk down a hall or something, but I just picked out the ones I thought were kind of cool. From episode 70, season 4, this one's really sneaky. It stated that the hull integrity of Tom and... I don't know how to pronounce this. It's B-Ilana.
Ilana.
Okay, the hull integrity of...
Again, just say it phonetically.
Yeah, just say it phonetically. Okay. It is stated that the hull integrity of Tom and B'Elanna's shuttle is at 53%, which means if you do the math, 47% of their hull integrity has been lost. You got to wonder if some of this stuff's coincidence or if they're really trying to put it in there.
Well, I'm sure they're working it in.
Here's 2 from Deep Space Nine. I only picked 2 from this one, but to me, these are the most telling, all right? From episode 79, season 4 of that series, here's a bunch of more Star Trek names. Quark, Rom, Nog, and Odo.
Yeah, you got
Odo.
Odo.
O-D-O, right? It's
Jeez.
Odo.
They
Go,
travel back
man.
to Roswell.
You know,
Travel
fan.
back- Well, I'm
nerd.
not. I'm not. Travel back to Roswell.
But it's like
19
ODO. How would it?
It's O. It could be Otto.
You're just not cool at all, man. So, how'd you get on this show? You know anything about Star Trek, man? God.
You ain't even.
Brooks, John, what did we hire this guy for?
Why don't you play with your Han Solo doll? Let's go
All right.
play Darth Vader.
From episode 79, season 4 of Deep Space Nine, Quark, Rom, Nog, and Odo travel back to Roswell, 1947, the time of the famous Roswell incident. Of course, we're all familiar with the Roswell UFO incident, which happened in New Mexico in July of 1947. I think that's an interesting one because,
Yeah,
it's
but
in space.
what if the Roswell thing happened in 1949? Would they have still written the episode?
Well, maybe 49 would be the number they put into everything. I'm saying there's a possible connection. That's all I'm saying.
It's an interesting coincidence.
From episode 123 of season 5, Cisco quotes, "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith," which is a biblical quote from 2 Timothy 4:7. Coincidence? Or is it much more than that? As an adjunct to this, it is also interesting to note that it is said that Jesus performed 47 miracles.
Awesome. Which one of those miracles was Star Trek: The Next Generation?
I believe that was number
Was that number
12.
47 and then just out?
Yeah, it's like that. This is my shining moment. I am done.
Actually, it's more like I'm almost out of juice. Here.
I took one look at TNG and said, "Yeah, I'd better quit."
Just bam, bam, shimmy, sham, holodeck. Done.
To tie this number
sorry, guys.
into Sean's theory, we need only look at history. January 31st, 1947, the communists take power in Poland, which leads Harry Truman to implement the Truman Doctrine to fight the spread of communism in May of that very same year. So, go ahead and tear apart my theories. I know you've been anxiously waiting all this time.
No, okay. It's quite possible that that the guy infected the other writers and thought this is something funny we can put in the. Lord knows they wouldn't put anything else funny in the scripts.
This reminds me of like when we did a radio serial. Man, Greg was there and we did it, but in every episode we wanted to either say the phrase "I'm not wearing any pants" or have someone just make a reference to pants. So I'm not sure if that ties into your conspiracy, but we did that too.
So these guys did it, and they did it for like 12 years.
Well, we didn't get to do a show for 12 years. We probably would have gotten tired of pants after 12 years instead of 10 episodes. But I'm just saying, 47 is a pretty random thing. Like, you could work that in. It's hard to write an episode around someone talking about pants. That's all I'm saying.
So now that would be a conspiracy. Like if Captain Picard every once in a while would walk out of his quarters without his pants on.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Now,
Take
that
off my
happens in
pants and gauge.
That happens in Enterprise now. People are losing their pants and
Man, people are just losing their clothes left and right on that Enterprise show. I don't even understand. I guess really Star Trek may be about the evolution of the zipper. Because in Next Generation, they always seem to keep their clothes on. But Enterprise, in those early years, man, Starfleet's biggest concern was just keeping some pants on the kids.
That's before they invented those one-piece unitard things that everyone had to wear.
Yeah, we get a
skin tight.
Well, maybe that's what what the footies were about. Like, look, man, this will make it easier. And as a side note, let's stop greasing them up after every mission. That's probably a bad idea. I don't see how that's helping anything. Maybe this all ties into my theory that the Lord of the Rings is pot smoker propaganda. Is that possible?
Is it possible that it ties in, or is it possible that it's pot smoker propaganda?
Let's just say it's possible that I just went on a completely separate tangent, and we moved on from there.
Well, we had discussed this, too, prior to the show. And big nerd that I am.
You researched it and found out that I also was not the only person.
And yeah, no, of course we know that you're not the only person that had a theory, because I remember being in the theater, and of course, they make the little reference like the hobbits.
Well, he talks about how awesome their weed is. Everyone starts giggling. All right, all that aside though, but I really think there's an argument to be made here, because take the hobbits as a race. What are their traits? They're easygoing. They're not at all ambitious. They like to party. They're constantly hungry. They are always smoking what they call the long bottom leaf. Gandalf calls it the finest weed around. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, they smoke this thing for 2 seconds, and the next thing you know, they're blowing smoke rings that look like ships stuff. I mean, come on. Maybe that's not all magic.
And they had a very satisfied look on their face, too. When
Yeah,
they were
the hobbits just assume Gandalf's a wizard. I mean, maybe he's just going around and he's giving them all a bunch of weed and he's shooting off some fireworks, taking off. That's what it looks like to me on this. I mean, nothing happens. He's like, oh, happy birthday. Everybody smokes up a little bit. He shoots up a bunch of fireworks and then he's gone. And he comes back later and he's like all paranoid about stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, where's the ring? What'd you do? Is it secret? Is it safe? You gotta leave right now. And does even Frodo question it? No, of course. If someone comes in, you talking a bunch of paranoid crap, the next thing you know, if you're a big pothead, is you start buying into it. Like, oh, I gotta pack a bag right now. I could be gone tonight. He never even asked, what are you talking about? He's gone. You're right. I gotta hide the ring. I gotta go. Oh, they know who I am. They know what I did. Oh my God, I gotta leave Hobbiton forever. And he's gone.
By the time he comes down, he's already at the prancing pony,
running off into the woods.
Gandalf tells him he's gonna meet him there, and he completely flakes out, much like a pot smoker would.
Oh, dude, man, I'm sorry. I had some other stuff going on. I started talking to a moth about some stuff, and I started riding a giant eagle. Crazy, right? I was nuts. Yeah, that's the Hobbit. That whole story doesn't make any sense. And who wants to fight the hobbits in the story? There's Saruman, who is basically just a big logging interest, and all he's doing is trying to fight the hemp. And then who's Sauron? He's the big fascist regime, and the fascists never like the weed because the weed promotes peace. You dig what I'm saying? It's all about that. The whole story from start to finish. Because basically what happens, people are like, oh, Gandalf's really magical. It's like, okay, break down what Gandalf does for you. And Gandalf shows up and we all smoke this pipe and then he shoots some fireworks and then we start running through the mountains and we start riding a bunch of eagles and stuff. It's great. Every adventure with Gandalf has someone returning with a yarn of this fashion.
Man, it's also awesome. Clear to me now.
These goblins came in, they were riding wolves. We climbed the trees, eagles took us, it was dude turned into a bear. It's great. I think I'm right here. I don't care what anyone says. I think I'm totally right.
They actually, I looked this up for Sean, and in the prologue to The Lord of the Rings, the book, Tolkien himself actually says that it's tobacco, because they were even in that time there were a lot of people making that connection, and he's like, no, it's tobacco.
It's tobacco.
But then he may have just been saying that to satisfy the squares.
Yeah, it's weed, man. It's totally weed. What's wrong with it?
The hobbits eat like eight meals a day. Nobody does that. I don't care how fat you are.
Yes.
They never
that's
stop.
That's probably what all that green stuff around Hobbiton is, man. They just grow the grass out of weed.
That'd be the greatest. Yeah, they frickin' live in the ground. They're like, look, I don't care about you guys, but I'm gonna just dig a hole right there and build a house in the hole.
Yeah, they stay out of the affairs of the world and they just hang out. They don't bother anybody. Yeah, typical potheads.
I'm totally about it. Yeah, and that's fine. But that's what it's about. So there you have it, folks.
Well, if those of you out there have a theory on this, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, if there's an impossible rebuttal to this nonsense, I will engage it. feedback@tv8mydinner.com is the email address where you can reach us on that level. Whatever our level
we've discussed tonight, if you have a strong theory about it, We'll share it. If it's good, we'll share it.
I predict we'll get 47 emails about this.
The 47th email wins a prize.
I won't say what it is because we don't have any prizes yet, but
It's
we'll
a
find
mystery
something.
prize.
Is this the way it happened? Was Jack the Ripper, in fact, a 60-foot sea serpent from Scotland? Did I take this job for a quick buck? We may never know the answer to these questions.
All right. Well, I think we've put this topic to bed either
Yes.
way, or run it into the ground, however you want to say it. But
No doubt.
we do have another segment to go into that we will only be doing this once a month. But every month from now on, I would like to dub a new real-life Johnny drama.
Johnny Drama, Eddie Burns.
Congratulations, Johnny.
Drama, Jimmy Woods.
I have drama. I hope you guys do.
There is the man. There is the legend. But only one who walks a certain career path has earned the right to become known as a real-life Johnny Drama.
Thank you, God.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Did you find this a Johnny drama this time, Sean?
I found us a Johnny drama this month, and he's a good one. He's a keeper. This Johnny drama for August 2007 will be Jeffrey Meek. And I know what everybody out there is saying is, who's Jeffrey Meek? But you'd know him if you saw him. That's what makes him a great Johnny drama. You may not remember Meek from the Remo Williams TV pilot, which a lot of people don't even believe was real, but it
I
happened.
remember that.
It only aired one time, and it
Just like the
co-starred
movie.
Roddy McDowell. Roddy McDowell was Chun in the Remo Williams TV pilot, but it happened. But you'd recognize Jeffrey Meek if you saw him on the street, definitely if you saw him on TV. He's done Miami Vice, he's been in episodes of The Pretender, Profiler, Law and Order, and who could forget his portrayal of Vlad the Impaler on Hercules' Legendary Journeys. Perhaps best known for the Raven TV movie and subsequent short-lived TV series, Meek also starred in the single-season Mortal Kombat TV series as both Raiden and Shao Kahn. He's doing soaps these days, but he's got a couple of episodes of Charmed under his belt, and like Johnny Drama in the show, he's done a couple of episodes of Pacific Blue. So congratulations, Jeffrey Meek, you're this month's real-life Johnny Drama.
Woo! Yay!
All right.
Kudos
Now I
to
gotta go
you,
look him up and
sir.
see what he looks like.
IMDb him, man, because as soon as you IMDb him, you're going to go, that guy.
I think I know who it is. I think
That's what makes him a real Johnny Drama, man. No shame in it at all. You are a real Johnny Drama, my
I'm gonna
friend.
look him up. I think he was in Max Headroom too. If it's the same guy,
It's
that'll show.
possible.
Well, I'll tell
It's
you what.
possible.
I'll put a link to that on the website too. A link to his IMDb. So you have lots of links on this week's entry to
Yeah.
research if you want to look
Everybody
into
take
this.
a look. We need to honor our Johnny Dramas because this is not an insult at all. A guy who works his whole life in Hollywood and has been on everything. That's his job. That's something to be proud
Hey
of.
man, you're a survivor. You're a Hollywood survivor. So email us. Tell us your what's his name?
Yeah,
Meek
if
stories?
you have an idea, Jeffrey Meek, if you have a Jeffrey Meek story, or if you think, if you have a real life Johnny Drama in mind, email us on that. We would certainly like to hear from you.
Are we going to close out with a story tonight?
We should close out with a story, especially since we're going to be at Dragon Con this year. I think I have a Dragon Con story. I guess we should mention that. We will TV Ate My Dinner. The crew of the show will be at Dragon Con this year, which is a major movie, TV, sci-fi, fantasy genre convention that happens in Atlanta every year. It's
and
the big.
it's coming up just next week, Labor Day.
It will be-
Labor Day weekend, much to my wife's chagrin.
I went through. They have their Walk of Fame there, and if you take someone's picture, you have to give them $50. It's like a tax for the no longer famous. And I'm walking through there with my video camera because apparently, if you walk through your video camera, no one cares. And I'm filming everybody, and finally, Lorenzo Lamas is there, the renegade. And I settle on Lorenzo, and I'm filming him for a while because I'm fascinated by the fact that no one's at his table. Like, he's getting 0 autographs. And I'm filming him, and finally, his eyes look over, and I can see he sees me filming him. And I had to make a hasty retreat. I was afraid I might get crescent kicked.
Yeah, I was saying, he was about
He
to
gave me a look like,
get
dude.
the crap smacked out of you by Renegade, man.
I know.
How awesome is that?
Well, that's what everyone's been ribbing me ever since. It's like, Sean, like, of all the fights you've ever wanted to start and couldn't get off the ground, you're telling me you back down from the Lorenz? Because win or lose, that's a story.
No kidding, man. That's worth the price of admission right there. And you'd have it on tape,
That's true.
too.
Yeah, I blew it. I guess I felt bad for him because I used to like Renegade.
It does seem like they've tried to diversify their star base as far as that's concerned. Because there were a lot of people from Happy Days. Potsy was from Happy Days last year.
And I love Potsy, don't get me wrong. But it's a weird thing when you run into Potsy at the Dragon Con. You don't want to see Potsy rolling with a bunch of Klingons.
So that's the guy you need to start a fight with. I mean, that's a great story. And you get, I got in a fist fight with Potsy from Happy Days at Dragon Con.
No, you got to leave the at Dragon Con part out. It's much cooler if you don't say that.
Well, it's just a good story too because the name Potsy. He's like, I kicked Potsy's ass.
I cold cocked Potsy. Bring it. Who could say that? It's like, yeah, but you backed away from the Renegade. He's Reno Reigns, man. He can noodle kick me. He's a snake eater. You don't want to mess with that guy. All right. Well, you can email us at feedback@tv8mydinner.com. You can always see episodes old and new at tv8mydinner.com, and you can reach me or look at my publishing stuff through www.darkcrazy.com. And those are the plugs. You can also get us at myspace.com/tv8mydinner. That's a new addition that we have this week.
And you can learn about me and Sean on MySpace as well, because we'll be linked there.
Well,
but Brooks,
that's right. You can springboard into our actual MySpace accounts there, and you can see the coolest new account, which is as close as you'll get to Brooks.
That's right, because Brooks doesn't believe in MySpace.
No, that's a subject for another episode. We'll do that some other time. But anyway, thanks for listening. My name's Brooks.
I'm Sean.
I'm Greg.
Okay, well, we'll see you guys next week. And actually, next week is Dragon Con. And we're going to be posting our Zombie Survival Guide special edition that week. So that's something to look forward to. So thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.